Alex wiped the sweat from his brow as he rummaged through the piles of discarded electronics in the abandoned warehouse. The outlands were sweltering today, adding to the difficulty of scavenging. In this part of the city, society's rejects and outcasts eked out a meager existence. The sleek, telepathically connected citizens of the inner city had no place here. You had to fend for yourself, and that's exactly what Alex was doing. "Hey Alex, find anything good?" called out Maya, a young woman with bright blue hair and a mischievous grin, as she approached with an armful of scavenged parts. "Not yet," Alex replied, his voice tinged with frustration. "But I'm not giving up. There's got to be something useful in this junk." As Alex continued his search, he suddenly heard a faint, rhythmic crackling sound. It was so out of place that he almost dismissed it, but curiosity got the better of him. He followed the noise to an old, battered radio buried beneath a heap of rusted metal. "Guys, come here. You need to see this," Alex shouted. Dr. Leah Carter, their unofficial leader, and a former scientist exiled for her radical ideas, approached with a mix of curiosity and caution. "What is it, Alex?" Alex held up the radio. "I think it's still working. Listen." He fiddled with the knobs, and the crackling grew louder until a garbled voice emerged from the static. The words were indistinct, but the urgency was clear. "That's impossible," Leah whispered. "Radio signals haven't been used in decades, not since the telepathic network was fully established." Maya leaned in, her eyes wide with excitement. "Do you think it's a distress signal? Maybe someone's trying to reach out for help." "Or it could be a trap," added Jackson, a burly man with a cynical streak and a knack for mechanical repairs. "We can't trust anything in the Outlands." "We won't know until we investigate," Leah decided. "Alex, can you trace the signal?" Alex nodded, already connecting wires and adjusting frequencies. "Give me a few minutes." The group watched in tense silence as Alex worked. Finally, the radio crackled to life again, this time with a clearer signal. A male voice, though still distorted, could be heard. ... Danger. Must. Decode. Prevent. Leah's eyes narrowed. "It's a warning. We need to find the source of this signal." The sun was beginning to set as the group made their way through the labyrinthine streets of the Outlands, guided by the faint signal Alex had managed to trace. They arrived at a crumbling building that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. "This is it," Alex said, pointing to a weathered sign that read Old Town Radio Station. The door creaked loudly as they pushed it open, the inside cloaked in darkness. Leah switched on her flashlight, illuminating rows of dusty equipment and tangled wires. "Look at all this," Maya said, her voice echoing in the empty space. "It's like stepping into a time capsule." Jackson started inspecting the equipment. "Some of this stuff might still work if we can get the power on." As they explored the station, Leah's flashlight beam landed on a desk covered in papers and old maps. In the center was a bulky, antiquated radio transmitter, its lights dim but flickering. "This is where the signal is coming from," Alex confirmed. He moved to the transmitter, adjusting knobs and switches. Suddenly, the radio sprang to life, and the garbled voice returned. ... Must decode. Time is running out." Leah leaned in, her heart pounding. "We need to decode these messages. If they're predicting future events, we could prevent a disaster." "But how do we decode them?" Jackson asked, looking skeptical. "Let's start by recording the messages," Leah suggested. "Then we can analyze them and look for patterns." Maya found an old reel-to-reel tape recorder and set it up. As the next message came through, they recorded it, then played it back, trying to make sense of the words. "It's like a puzzle," Maya said, her eyes shining with excitement. "And I love puzzles." Hours passed as they worked, the atmosphere growing more intense with each new message. Finally, they managed to decode a fragment. ... Bridge collapse. Noon tomorrow. Lives at risk. Leah's face turned pale. The central bridge. It's a major artery into the inner city. If it collapses, hundreds could die. Alex looked determined. "We have to stop it. We need to warn people." "But who's going to listen to us?" Jackson argued. "We're outcasts, remember." "We don't need them to listen to us," Leah said firmly. "We just need to be there in time to prevent it." With a plan forming, the group gathered their equipment and prepared to head to the bridge, each of them aware that this was just the beginning of something much larger and more dangerous than they had anticipated. As they left the old radio station, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the outlands. The first decoded message had set them on a path that would challenge everything they knew about their world and themselves. The morning sun was just beginning to light up the sky when Alex, Leah, Maya, and Jackson arrived at the central bridge. The air was thick with tension. "We have less than an hour," Leah said, glancing at her watch. "We need to find the weak points and reinforce them." Jackson surveyed the bridge, noting the heavy traffic already streaming across. "This thing is a mess. Look at the rust, the wear. We should start under the bridge. If there's going to be a collapse, that's where it'll start." Maya nodded, already moving toward the maintenance access ladder. "I'll check the support beams. Alex, can you get the tools?" On it, Alex replied, grabbing a bag filled with wrenches, bolts, and other repair equipment. Leah turned to Jackson. "You and I will keep an eye on the structure from up here. We need to warn people if we see any immediate danger." Jackson grunted in agreement and started examining the upper supports. Maya's voice echoed from below the bridge. "There's a major crack in one of the main supports. It's bad, Leah. Really bad." Leah's heart pounded. "Can we reinforce it?" "I think so," Maya called back. "But we need to hurry." Alex slid down the ladder, tools in hand. "Let's do this." As they worked frantically to reinforce the beams, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching them. He glanced around but saw only the usual early morning commuters. "Guys, I think we're being watched," he muttered to Leah. She nodded subtly. "Just focus on the task. We'll deal with that later." Minutes felt like hours as they tightened bolts, welded cracks, and did everything they could to stabilize the bridge. Suddenly, a loud creaking noise echoed through the structure, and the bridge shuddered. "Get back," Leah yelled. They scrambled away just as a section of the bridge's railing gave way and fell into the river below. The commuters screamed and backed away from the edge, chaos erupting around them. "We need to clear the bridge," Jackson said, running up to the crowd. "Everyone off the bridge. Now." Leah joined him, waving her arms. "The bridge is unstable. You need to move." Slowly, the crowd began to disperse, though some people hesitated, casting confused and skeptical glances at them. "Why should we listen to you?" a man shouted. "You're not officials." Alex climbed back up, sweat dripping down his face. "We don't have time to argue. The bridge could collapse any second." Maya emerged from beneath the bridge, looking grim. "We've done all we can. It might hold, but we need to keep people off until it can be properly repaired." The sound of sirens filled the air as city officials and law enforcement arrived. An officer approached them, looking stern. "What's going on here? Why are you causing a panic?" he demanded. Leah stepped forward, trying to stay calm. "The bridge is unstable. We discovered a structural flaw and did what we could to reinforce it, but it needs immediate attention from your engineers." The officer looked skeptical. "And who are you to make that call?" "We're the ones who saved your lives," Jackson snapped. "So maybe you should listen." The officer's radio crackled, and he stepped away to speak into it. When he returned, he seemed slightly more convinced. "All right, we'll cordon off the area. But you need to come with us for questioning." Leah nodded. "We'll cooperate. Just make sure the bridge is safe." As they were escorted to a waiting vehicle, Alex couldn't shake the feeling of unease. They had prevented a disaster, but they had also drawn attention to themselves, attention they didn't want. Later at the police station, they sat in a sterile room, waiting to be questioned. The tension was palpable. "What are we going to tell them?" Maya whispered. "The truth," Leah replied. "But we need to be careful about how much we reveal. We can't let them know about the radio station or the messages." The door opened, and a stern-looking officer entered. "I'm Lieutenant Harris. I understand you believe you've prevented a disaster today." Leah nodded. "That's correct. We discovered a structural weakness in the bridge and took action to reinforce it. The bridge needs immediate repairs." Harris studied them for a moment. How did you come across this information? We heard about it from a source, Alex said cautiously. An old contact who's knowledgeable about city infrastructure. Harris raised an eyebrow. And why would this contact not come forward themselves? Leah exchanged a glance with Alex. They prefer to remain anonymous. We just acted on the information we received. Harris leaned back, tapping his pen against the table. All right, we'll investigate your claims. In the meantime, you're free to go, but don't leave the city. We may need to speak with you again. As they left the station, the group huddled together. That was close, Jackson muttered. We need to be more careful. We will be, Leah assured him. But we can't stop now. There's too much at stake. Back at the radio station, they gathered around the transmitter, the weight of their mission settling over them. We've got the bridge sorted for now, Alex said. But what's next? Leah looked at the equipment, determination in her eyes. We keep decoding the messages. We need to stay one step ahead of whatever's coming. As they prepared for another long night of decoding, the radio crackled to life with a new message. The voice was clearer this time, the urgency more palpable. ... must decode. Danger is closer than you think. Trust no one. Back at the old radio station, the group was in high spirits despite the tension of the day's events. The success of preventing the bridge collapse had given them a renewed sense of purpose, but the latest message had them on edge. Trust no one. What does that mean? Maya asked, pacing around the room. Leah leaned against the dusty desk, deep in thought. It means we're not just dealing with structural issues. Someone or something is behind these events. Alex nodded, adjusting the knobs on the radio transmitter. We need to decode more messages. There must be clues about who's orchestrating this. Jackson, always the skeptic, crossed his arms. And what if this is just a wild goose chase? What if we're being played? Then we find out who's pulling the strings, Leah said firmly. And we stop them. The radio crackled again, and another message came through. This time the voice was eerily calm, almost robotic. ... assassination. Government official. Tomorrow evening. Prevent. An assassination, Maya's eyes widened. This is getting serious. Who's the target? Jackson asked, leaning closer to the radio. Alex rewound the recording, trying to catch more details. It said government official. We need to find out who's scheduled to appear in public tomorrow evening. Leah pulled out an old tablet, the screen cracked but still functional. I'll check the city's public records and announcements. There must be something. Minutes later, Leah found what they were looking for. There's a public rally in the city center tomorrow night. Councillor Edmund Blake is the keynote speaker. Blake, Jackson frowned. Isn't he the one pushing for stricter telepathic regulations? Yes, Leah confirmed. Which means he's made a lot of enemies. We need to get to that rally and prevent the assassination. The next evening, the city center was bustling with activity. The air was charged with excitement and tension as people gathered to hear Councillor Blake speak. Alex, Leah, Maya, and Jackson blended into the crowd, their eyes scanning for any signs of danger. Stay alert, Leah whispered. We don't know who the assassin is or how they plan to strike. Maya, with her keen observational skills, noticed a group of people acting suspiciously near the stage. Over there, she pointed subtly. Those guys look out of place. Jackson nodded. I'll get closer and see if I can hear anything. He moved through the crowd, trying to appear casual. As Jackson approached, he overheard snippets of conversation. ... tonight's the night. Blake won't see it coming. He hurried back to the group. They're definitely planning something. We need to stop them now. Leah took charge. Maya, find security and alert them. Alex, you and Jackson try to get closer to Blake. I'll create a distraction. Maya nodded and disappeared into the crowd, looking for security personnel. Alex and Jackson moved towards the stage, their eyes locked on the counselor who was just stepping up to speak. Leah approached a group of people near the stage and started talking loudly. Did you hear about the collapse at the bridge? It was supposed to be a terrorist attack. Her words caught the attention of both the crowd and the security guards, causing a ripple of concern and distraction. In the commotion, Maya found a guard and urgently explained the situation. There's a threat on Counselor Blake's life. You need to get him out of here. The guard's eyes widened, and he quickly relayed the message through his earpiece. As security started moving towards the stage, Alex and Jackson closed in on the suspicious group. One of the men pulled out a device, aiming it towards the stage. Alex didn't hesitate, he lunged forward, knocking the device out of the man's hand. "Get him," the man shouted to his accomplices. A scuffle broke out, drawing more attention from the crowd. Security rushed in, detaining the men, while Alex and Jackson struggled to keep the situation under control. Maya and Leah pushed through the crowd to join them. "Are you guys okay?" Leah asked, breathless. "Yeah," Alex panted. "But we need to get out of here before the authorities start asking questions." As they slipped away from the chaos, they heard Counselor Blake's voice over the loudspeakers, thanking security and the brave citizens who had helped thwart the attack. Back at the radio station, the group was exhausted but relieved. "We did it," Maya said, sinking into a chair. "We actually did it." Leah nodded, though her expression remained serious. "This is just the beginning. Whoever is behind these messages won't stop. We need to stay vigilant." The radio crackled to life once more, the voice now a familiar presence in their midst. ... Next target. Deeper conspiracy. Not what it seems. Alex looked around at his friends, determination in his eyes. "We need to figure out who's sending these messages and why. It's the only way to stop this." Leah agreed. "We need to be careful. Trust no one, remember." Maya sighed, but there was a glint of resolve in her eyes. "I guess we're in this for the long haul." The radio station hummed with energy as Alex, Leah, Maya, and Jackson pored over their latest decoded message. The air was thick with anticipation, the flickering lights casting long shadows on the walls. Next target. Deeper conspiracy. Not what it seems, Alex read aloud, his voice tense. "This is getting more complicated by the minute." Leah rubbed her temples. "We need to find out who's behind these messages and what their ultimate goal is. There has to be a reason they're targeting specific events and people." Maya tapped on her laptop, searching through old government records and news archives. "We've been focusing on the messages, but what about the technology? This radio station, why is it still operational? Who set it up in the first place?" Jackson leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "You're thinking this is more than just random broadcasts?" Maya nodded. "Exactly. If we can trace the origin of this station, we might find out who's sending the messages and why." Alex's eyes lit up. "I can help with that. I'll run a diagnostic on the equipment and see if I can find any clues about its setup." As Alex began his work, Leah joined Maya at the computer. "Let's look into the history of telepathic communication. Maybe there's something there that ties into the radio station." Hours passed as they dug through mountains of data. The more they uncovered, the more questions arose. Finally, Alex called them over. "Check this out," he said, pointing to the screen. "The radio equipment here has been modified. Someone installed a series of encryption modules and signal boosters. This setup isn't just old, it's advanced. Way ahead of its time." Leah frowned. "Advanced how?" "It's like someone knew telepathic communication would take over and planned for it. These modules were designed to intercept and decode telepathic signals, then broadcast them as radio waves." Maya's eyes widened. "You're saying this station was built to bridge the gap between old and new communication technologies?" "Exactly," Alex confirmed. "And whoever did this wanted to stay hidden. These modifications are nearly impossible to trace." Jackson shook his head in disbelief. "So we're dealing with someone who not only understands both technologies but can manipulate them at will." Leah's mind raced. What if the person behind this was part of the original telepathic project? Someone who saw the potential for control and decided to keep a failsafe. Maya's fingers flew across the keyboard. "I'm accessing classified government files. If this theory is right, there should be records of the project's founders and key players." As they waited for the files to load, the radio crackled again, this time with a different tone. The voice was familiar but carried an edge of desperation. ... They're coming for you. Must uncover the truth. Hidden within the data." Maya's screen blinked, and a flood of encrypted files appeared. "These are from the original telepathic project. There's a ton of information here." Leah leaned in. "Focus on the key figures. Who were the scientists, engineers, and leaders involved? Maya filtered the search and found a list of names. Here we go. Dr. Malcolm Reed, head scientist. Amelia Shaw, lead engineer. Counselor James Hawke, government liaison. Alex's eyes narrowed. Hawke. That name sounds familiar. Leah nodded. Counselor James Hawke was a major advocate for telepathic communication. He's been out of the public eye for years, though. Maya clicked on Hawke's file. He disappeared shortly after the project was completed. No records of him since. Jackson scowled. Convenient, isn't it? He pushes for telepathic communication, then vanishes, leaving us with this mess. Leah's face grew serious. If Hawke is behind this, we need to find him. He might hold the key to everything. Alex looked at the equipment, and if he's still monitoring telepathic signals, he'll know we're looking for him. Just then, the building's power flickered, and the radio blared to life with a new, urgent message. ... They know you're searching. Protect the data. Trust no one. Maya's laptop screen filled with a warning: intrusion detected. System compromised. Someone's hacking us, Maya exclaimed, frantically typing to fend off the attack. Alex jumped in to help. We need to isolate the system. Disconnect from the main network. Leah grabbed a bundle of wires and pulled, severing their connection to the outside. The screens went dark, but the warning message lingered in their minds. Jackson sighed. Looks like we've poked the hornet's nest. Leah nodded grimly. We need to secure this place and keep our data safe. But we can't stop now. Hawke is our best lead. As they fortified the station, the tension grew. Every shadow seemed like a threat, every noise a potential danger. They were in deeper than ever, and the conspiracy was starting to close in around them. The group huddled around a makeshift table, their faces illuminated by the dim glow of a single lamp. The radio station was now a fortress, fortified against any potential threats. We need to find Hawke, Leah said, breaking the silence. He's our only lead, and we're running out of time. Maya nodded. I managed to save some data before the system was compromised. There's an address linked to Hawke in the old records. It's in the Outlands. Alex frowned. Why would he be hiding out here? The Outlands are dangerous. Leah shrugged. Maybe that's the point. It's the last place anyone would look for him. Jackson stood up, grabbing his jacket. Then we'd better get moving. The longer we wait, the more likely it is that someone will try to stop us. As they left the safety of the radio station, the streets of the Outlands seemed more foreboding than ever. Shadows lurked around every corner, and the distant sounds of the city felt ominous. Maya led the way, following the coordinates on her tablet. It's not far, just a few more blocks. They arrived at a run-down building, its windows boarded up and the exterior covered in graffiti. Leah glanced at Alex. You sure this is the place? Alex nodded, checking the address again. This is it. Jackson pushed open the door, the hinges creaking loudly in the silence. Stay close. We don't know what we're walking into. Inside, the air was stale and the rooms were filled with old, decaying furniture. They moved cautiously, searching for any signs of life. Over here, Maya whispered, pointing to a door at the end of a narrow hallway. There's light coming from underneath. Leah approached the door, her heart pounding. She knocked gently. Counselor Hawke, are you in there? The door creaked open, revealing an elderly man with piercing blue eyes. His face was lined with age, but there was a sharpness in his gaze that spoke of a keen mind. Hawke, Alex asked, stepping forward. The man nodded. Yes, I'm James Hawke, and you must be the ones intercepting my messages. Leah's eyes widened. You're the one sending the broadcasts. Hawke stepped aside, motioning for them to enter. Come in. We have much to discuss. The group entered the room, which was filled with old electronics, papers, and strange devices. Hawke closed the door behind them and took a seat. I've been monitoring the telepathic network for years, he began. I discovered a faction within the government that's been manipulating it for their own gain. They're planning something catastrophic. Maya leaned forward. What are they planning? Hawke's expression grew grim. They've developed a way to use the telepathic network to control minds on a massive scale. They want to establish absolute control over the population. Jackson clenched his fists. How do we stop them? Hawk pointed to a large device in the corner. That's the source of the broadcasts. It's designed to intercept and decode telepathic signals, then broadcast them as radio waves. I've been using it to send warnings and information. Leah nodded. We need to use it to expose the conspiracy. Broadcast the truth to everyone. Hawk hesitated. It's not that simple. The device is powerful, but it's also unstable. If we overload it, it could backfire. Alex studied the device. I can help stabilize it. We just need to increase the power output without causing a meltdown. Hawk looked impressed. You're quite knowledgeable. Very well, let's get to work. As Alex and Hawk worked on the device, Leah and the others prepared the broadcast. They gathered all the evidence they had collected, including the data Maya had salvaged. We need to make sure everyone hears this, Leah said, her voice resolute. It's our only chance to stop them. Hours passed, and the group worked tirelessly. Finally, the device was ready. Alex wiped the sweat from his brow and gave a thumbs up. It's stable. We're ready. Hawk activated the device, and the room filled with the hum of power. Once we start, there's no turning back. Are you all prepared for what's to come? Leah nodded. We are. Let's do this. The broadcast began. The truth about the conspiracy and the planned mind control being sent out to every radio and telepathic receiver in the city. As the message spread, the group could feel the weight of their actions. They had exposed the truth, but the fight was far from over. Leah looked at her friends, determination in her eyes. This is just the beginning. We need to stay vigilant and be ready for whatever comes next. As the broadcast continued, the group prepared for the inevitable backlash. The hum of the device filled the room as the broadcast continued, carrying their message of truth and warning throughout the city. Leah's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and determination. She knew that their actions would have far-reaching consequences. Hawk adjusted a dial on the device. The signal is strong. We're reaching every corner of the city. Now we just have to hope that people listen. Maya kept her eyes on the monitors, watching for any signs of interference. We need to be ready for anything. If the government catches wind of this, they'll try to shut us down. Jackson stood by the door, his muscles tense. Let them come. We're not backing down. The radio crackled, and the familiar voice came through once more. ... exposure imminent. Retaliation expected. Stay vigilant. Alex glanced at Leah. What's our next move? We can't just sit here and wait. Leah took a deep breath. We need to split up. Maya and I will stay here and monitor the broadcast. Alex, you and Jackson should head back to the radio station and secure it. If they try to shut us down, we need a backup plan. Jackson nodded. Got it. Let's move. As Alex and Jackson prepared to leave, Hawk handed Alex a small device. This is a portable signal booster. If they cut our main broadcast, use this to keep the message going. Alex took the device and nodded. Thanks, Hawk. We won't let you down. The two men left the building, disappearing into the shadows of the outlands. Leah watched them go, her mind racing with the possibilities of what could happen next. Maya glanced at Leah, her fingers still flying over the keyboard. You think they'll be okay? Leah sighed. They have to be. We don't have any other choice. Alex and Jackson made their way through the darkened streets, their senses heightened. The city felt different, charged with an unseen tension. Do you think people are listening? Jackson asked, glancing around. Alex nodded. They have to be. If we can reach enough people, we can turn the tide. They arrived at the radio station, its exterior now fortified with makeshift barricades. As they entered, they were greeted by the familiar hum of the equipment. Let's secure the place, Alex said, setting up the signal booster. We need to be ready for anything. Jackson nodded and began reinforcing the doors and windows. I'll keep watch. You handle the tech. As Alex worked on the equipment, his mind wandered to the messages they had decoded. Each one had brought them closer to this moment, but the thought of what lay ahead was daunting. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the station, followed by the sound of footsteps. Jackson tensed, ready for a fight. "Who's there?" he demanded, his voice steady. A figure emerged from the shadows, hands raised in a gesture of peace. It was a young woman, her face pale with fear. "Please don't hurt me. I'm here to help." Alex narrowed his eyes. "Who are you?" "My name is Leah," she said, her voice trembling. "I work for the government, but I've seen what they're planning. I couldn't stay silent any longer." Jackson lowered his guard slightly. "What do you know?" Leah took a deep breath. "They're coming for you. They know about the broadcast, and they're sending a team to shut it down. But there's more. They're planning to use the telepathic network to control the entire city. It's worse than you think." Alex exchanged a glance with Jackson. "Why should we trust you?" Lena's eyes filled with desperation. "Because I want to stop them too. I can help you." "Please just let me prove it." Jackson looked at Alex. "What do you think?" Alex hesitated, then nodded. "All right, Leah, if you're telling the truth, we need all the help we can get. But if you betray us..." Leah shook her head. "I won't. I promise." Back at Hawk's hideout, Leah and Maya continued to monitor the broadcast. The city was buzzing with activity, the message spreading like wildfire. "We're getting through," Maya said, her eyes glued to the screen. "People are waking up." Leah smiled, feeling a glimmer of hope. "We're making a difference." Suddenly, the radio crackled again, but this time it wasn't the familiar voice. It was an urgent message from Alex. "Leah, Jackson and I found someone. She says the government is sending a team to shut us down. We need to be ready." Leah's heart raced. "Understood. We'll hold the fort here. Be careful." As she ended the transmission, she looked at Maya. "We need to secure this place. If they're coming, we can't let them silence us." Maya nodded, her determination mirrored in Leah's eyes. "Let's do this." The two women quickly fortified the room, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. The weight of their mission pressed heavily on their shoulders, but they were resolute. "Stay vigilant," Leah reminded Maya. "We can't afford any mistakes." Maya nodded, her focus unwavering. "We're ready." The hum of the device continued, the broadcast carrying their message of truth and resistance. They had exposed the conspiracy, but the battle was far from over. As the sounds of the city grew louder outside, Leah took a deep breath. "Whatever happens, we stick together. We can't let them win." Maya agreed, her voice steady. "We've come this far. There's no turning back now." The final broadcast was in motion, and the fight for the city's future had only just begun. The tension in the air was palpable as Leah and Maya fortified their position in Hawk's hideout. The hum of the broadcasting equipment was a constant reminder of their mission. Every second counted, and they couldn't afford to be caught off guard. "Check the windows," Leah instructed, her voice low but firm. "We need to make sure we have eyes on all entry points." Maya nodded, moving swiftly to the nearest window. She peered out into the dark streets, scanning for any signs of movement. "All clear for now," she reported. Leah glanced at her watch. "Alex and Jackson should be back soon. We need to hold out until then." Meanwhile, at the radio station, Alex and Jackson were briefing Leah. "Tell us everything you know," Alex demanded, his tone urgent. Leah took a deep breath. "The government has a special unit trained for situations like this. They're equipped to shut down rogue broadcasts and apprehend anyone involved. They'll be here within the hour." Jackson frowned. "How do we stop them?" Leah hesitated. "There's a control hub in the city center. It's where they coordinate all telepathic communications. If you can disable it, it will buy us some time." Alex's eyes widened. "Are you saying we need to take out the control hub?" Leah nodded. "It's risky, but it's the only way. If the hub goes down, their response will be delayed. It'll give us a chance to regroup and come up with a new plan." Jackson gritted his teeth. "All right, let's do it. But we need to move fast." Back at the hideout, Leah and Maya were still on high alert. The radio crackled and Alex's voice came through. "Leah, we've got a plan. Leah says we need to disable the control hub in the city center. It'll buy us some time." Leah's eyes narrowed. "Understood. We'll hold the fort here. Be careful." As the transmission ended, Maya turned to Leah. Are we really going to trust her? Leah sighed. We don't have much of a choice. If Lena's telling the truth, this could be our only shot. We just have to hope Alex and Jackson can pull it off. Minutes later, Alex, Jackson, and Lena were en route to the city center. They moved swiftly through the shadows, avoiding patrols and surveillance cameras. The city seemed eerily quiet, as if it were holding its breath. There it is, Lena whispered, pointing to a nondescript building. The control hub. Jackson surveyed the area. Looks heavily guarded. How do we get in? Lena pulled out a small device. This is a jammer. It'll disable their security systems for a few minutes. Long enough for us to get inside. Alex took the jammer and nodded. All right, let's do this. They approached the building cautiously, Lena activating the jammer as they neared the entrance. The security lights flickered and went out, and the trio slipped inside. The control room was a maze of servers and monitors, all humming with energy. Alex and Jackson moved quickly, planting charges on key equipment while Lena kept watch. Hurry up, she urged. We don't have much time. Just as they finished setting the last charge, the lights flickered back on. Alarms blared, and the sound of footsteps echoed down the hall. We need to go, now Jackson shouted. They sprinted for the exit, the building shaking as the charges detonated behind them. The control hub was engulfed in flames, and the city was plunged into darkness. Back at the hideout, Leah and Maya watched as the city's lights flickered and died. They did it, Maya whispered, a mix of relief and fear in her voice. Leah nodded, but her expression remained serious. This is just the beginning. We need to stay ready. As Alex, Jackson, and Lena made their way back to the hideout, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed. The streets were eerily silent, and every shadow seemed to move with intent. We need to take a different route, Alex suggested, glancing over his shoulder. We can't lead them back to the hideout. Jackson nodded. Good call. Let's cut through the old market. The trio navigated the narrow alleyways of the abandoned market, their senses on high alert. Lena's face was pale with fear, but her determination was unwavering. We're almost there, Alex whispered. Just a few more blocks. Suddenly, a group of figures emerged from the shadows, blocking their path. They were armed and looked ready for a fight. Drop your weapons, one of them barked, pointing a gun at Alex. Jackson stepped forward, his hands raised. We don't want any trouble. We're just passing through. The leader of the group narrowed his eyes. You're the ones broadcasting that message, aren't you? You're the reason the city's in chaos. Alex exchanged a glance with Jackson. We're trying to stop a conspiracy. The government is planning to control everyone through the telepathic network. The leader hesitated, then lowered his gun slightly. Prove it. Lena stepped forward, her voice steady. I work for the government. I've seen the plans. They're real. If you help us, we can stop them. The leader studied them for a moment, then nodded. All right, we'll help you. But if you're lying. We're not, Jackson assured him. Trust me. With the help of their new allies, the trio made it back to the hideout. Leah and Maya were waiting anxiously, and their faces lit up with relief when they saw Alex, Jackson, and Lena. You made it, Leah said, her voice filled with emotion. And you brought reinforcements. Alex nodded. We're going to need all the help we can get. The government won't stop until they've silenced us for good. Maya looked at Lena. Can you help us decode the rest of the messages? Lena nodded. I'll do everything I can. As they worked together, the hideout buzzed with activity. The sense of camaraderie and determination was palpable, and everyone knew that they were on the brink of something monumental. The radio crackled to life once more, the voice now a familiar presence in their midst. ... Final warning. Prepare for the worst. Trust no one. Leah took a deep breath, her resolve strengthening. This is it. We're ready. The final broadcast was in motion, and the fight for the city's future had only just begun. But this time, they weren't alone. With the help of their new allies, they had a fighting chance to stop the conspiracy and save their city. And they were prepared to give everything they had to make it happen.